This chart shows how the biggest companies in the world have changed over time. As of now, the majority of the world's largest companies are tech companies. The chart reflects a narrative of how CEOs of these companies have successfully navigated disruption and change over the years. The CEOs who've been able to handle change and uncertainty the best are the ones that come out on top. But disruption and change is something we all face. The difference is some people are better at handling it than others. For those who struggle to handle change, it can be crippling and debilitating, for example, in their careers or businesses. However, for the ones who can master the uncertainty, there can be massive rewards on the other side. I've researched some of the world's top tech CEOs. I've read countless biographies and heard thousands of hours of footage of their interviews to understand how they navigate disruption and change. And there are some very clear traits that you can focus on and develop when you're next faced with disruption or change. What became clear to me is that being comfortable with uncertainty is not an inherent skill in people. It can be learned and developed over time. But what I also found is that the most successful tech CEOs have a strange, counterintuitive relationship with disruption and change that may seem alien to the rest of us. Stay around until the end to see how they think about uncertainty on a daily basis that we can all learn from. Imagine if you created a billion-dollar company that has, in the space of a few short years, become a leader in its space, with a brand that is recognized the world over. As a result of your success, you've become one of the world's richest people, and your face is on the leading business and cultural publications all around the world. Now imagine if the company you created and have been working on for nearly a decade is the same company you've just been fired from, instigated by a guy you hired as chairman of the company. This is exactly the position Steve Jobs found himself in September 1985, when he was effectively cornered to tender his resignation to the board of Apple. The reason was the board's view that the Macintosh was a failing product that cost too much and was being outsold by the IBM PC. However, for Jobs, this was a crippling defeat and one that he took extremely personally. After all, how many times does a person get a chance to create a billion-dollar company in their lives and change the trajectory of an entire industry? But it's Jobs' response to this adversity and change that is most interesting. Following his effective firing from Apple in 1985, Jobs got straight back into the thick of things and founded a new company called Next. Next specialized in computer workstations for higher education and business markets, and later also developed web software. And although Next didn't achieve the commercial success that Jobs had hoped for, the company's technology and design innovations were considered significant. It was the innovation of the Next computer that was used by English computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web in 1990 at CERN in Switzerland. Other developments at Next included WebObjects, a framework for web application development. Jobs was intent on making a success of Next, and perhaps proving to his doubters of his ability to build and grow a successful technology company. Resilience in the face of massive change and disruption, both personal and professional for Jobs, was an essential part of how he was able to turn things around. We all know how that story ended, with Jobs having an ability to redeem himself and to take control over Apple as it continued to struggle into the 90s. Apple eventually acquired Next, and Jobs returned to Apple as CEO, where he used the lessons he learned from Next to help turn Apple around to eventually becoming the most valuable company in the world. Remember the WebObjects framework that Jobs developed Next? That was subsequently used to build and run the Apple Store and the iTunes Store, both of which we are all massively familiar with now. Jobs' co-founder Steve Wozniak later commented that Jobs used his time at Next to get his head together, to reflect, and to come back stronger. But whilst Jobs was responding to disruption that led to change over a decade, our Next tech CEO demonstrated his ability to respond quickly to massive disruption over just one weekend. It's Friday the 17th of November 2023, and OpenAI's board, including co-founder Ilya Sutskever, have just fired co-founder Sam Altman. The firing was effectively a coup, with a call at short notice and notification of the firing over a Google Meet in a stealth and totally unexpected call to Altman. The other co-founder, Greg Brockman, was also removed from the board. Watching all this unravel from the sidelines was Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Microsoft is a major investor in and partnered with OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT. And so there was a lot at stake if the management team was in a public meltdown. Satya would have been concerned not only about Microsoft's $10 billion investment they committed to at the beginning of 2023, but also Microsoft's prospects for a lead in artificial general intelligence, which was strongly tied to OpenAI. What Satya demonstrated on that weekend was nothing short of a masterstroke. Realizing that Microsoft's prospects of AGI dominance could go up in smoke without Altman no longer leading OpenAI, Satya negotiated a deal to hire Altman to Microsoft to lead a new AI research team. The invite was opened up to other OpenAI employees, including Greg Brockman. It was Nadella's decisiveness and ability to act at light speed over a changing situation that enabled him to win big from a hugely disruptive circumstance. The fact that Satya was able to execute on the hiring before markets opened on Monday morning was even more impressive. The net effect was that on open trading, Microsoft's shares rose by more than 2%, adding an extra $60 billion to the company's market cap. That's the equivalent additional value of the total value of FedEx. Now, Altman was rehired back by OpenAI a few days later, but Satya's response to the unfolding events remains as an example of the need sometimes to respond quickly to really take advantage of adversity and change. Whilst these two examples are based on change and disruption that warranted a CEO reaction, our final CEO has brought the change and disruption on himself. With 3 billion monthly active users, Facebook is an app that we've probably all used at some time or other in our lives. And by 2027, Facebook is expected to reach 75% of the world's population. That's a mind-blowing statistic. Think about it. 3/4 of the world's population will be using the app. That's more than the number of people in the world who have access to fresh drinking water. Despite TikTok getting all the attention these days, Facebook is still the most used social platform in the world by a long shot. Add to that the fact that companies such as Instagram and WhatsApp, both very widely used themselves, are also owned by Facebook. So in the midst of all this social media success and dominance, Facebook very publicly declared its change in focus from being known as a social media company to a company focused on the metaverse. In October 2021, Zuckerberg announced that the company was to be renamed as Meta Platforms Inc., or simply Meta. Zuckerberg has linked the new brand name to his strategic plan to create a metaverse, a virtual world in which consumers spend increasing parts of their lives based on AI and virtual reality technology. In so doing, Zuck has instigated the disruption and change on himself, his company, and on all of us. Let's be clear, there was no need for Zuckerberg to do this. Facebook was already at a height of relevance, as I explained earlier. So what was this change all about? Is it identifying a large opportunity or paranoia? I think it's probably a combination of both. Just because Facebook was super successful, along with everything it owned, such as Instagram and WhatsApp, it's not likely that this would have been a status quo that could have remained into the future. After all, there are many cautionary tales in tech of titans who quickly lost their mantle to rising upstarts. You only need to look at BlackBerry, the once leader in the smartphone space, or MySpace, the leading social networking company that was itself usurped by a then new company called Facebook. In taking this step, Zuckerberg has shown massive courage to invite disruption and change to a company that is already at the height of its peak. Now, Facebook had acquired Oculus in 2014 for $2 billion as part of the company's hugely expensive and long pursuit of its virtual reality universe. So it clearly wasn't an impulsive thing to focus on the metaverse. But nonetheless, Zuck demonstrated with real intent that at times it is important to be the change yourself, to bring about disruption yourself in order to change things and ensure long-term sustained success. The jury is still very much out on the metaverse, but Zuckerberg is thinking in decades, not in years. And once the technology undoubtedly catches up, then Meta will be ideally positioned to capitalize. Zuck demonstrated that the best tech CEOs are those who are comfortable with disruption and change. And it's important to recognize the inevitability of adversity. The best tech CEOs know that change and disruption is to be expected. After all, the tech industry is all about change and disruption, disrupting incumbents, large dinosaurs in industries that have struggled to innovate themselves. But Apple is now over 40 years old, as is Microsoft, and Facebook, or Meta, is also over 20 years old. There are hardly upstarts in the business world, but their leaders have the intuition to recognize and embrace change and identify the opportunity for something more. Because they know that if they don't learn to thrive and invite disruption, then they will also add to the list of the cautionary tales that came before them. As such, seeking out change and disruption, though uncomfortable at the time, is the thing that will lead to the most long-term growth in your own plans and objectives. Navigating change and uncertainty is clearly an important trait for success. But one important characteristic of being able to do this effectively is the need to be able to understand complex concepts quickly and effectively. You can check out the video on the screen to learn how Elon Musk does this with his companies. Thanks for watching.